Hi, thanks for staying with us. The city's Planning and Zoning Department has been putting together a neighborhood plan to help you identify your neighborhood better in Port St. Lucie. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today with Patti Tobin, Director of Planning and Zoning, and also Katie Huntress of our Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Good to have you here. So we'll start with you, Patti Tobin. You're the Director of Planning and Zoning. Before we get into the neighborhood plan, let's just get an idea. What is the Planning and Zoning Department? I don't know if we've ever had anybody on this show to talk about exactly what happens in your department.
I can't believe you've never had anybody on here to talk about planning and zoning. Planning and zoning works with development, the land, what it's used for. The planning part is looking out into the future. What do we want to see? And that sort of relates to the neighborhood plan as well. It's looking at compatible land uses. You know, when you look at the boulevard, for example, general development said we wanted single-family lots on Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Well, you don't want a road that's carrying 40, 50, 60,000 cars having single-family homes. So back in the 80s, the city said, let's change that. And slowly it's changing. It's not something that happens quickly. So that's part of what we did.
And you've got a lot of work to go backward and change things because the city's grown so much. You got to kind of look at those old issues and adapt them to new ways.
Right, exactly. And that's a challenge. And that's a challenge for all communities similar to Port St. Lucie.
It's got to keep you pretty busy.
Yep.
And so you are the people who make sure that we don't build factories with belching smokestacks next to elementary schools and that kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Very good. An important function for the city, certainly. Okay, so now let's talk about the neighborhood planning efforts that you've been involved in for quite some time now. What is that about?
We actually kicked it off the end of January with the mayor at his community conversation. And it's about taking planning to a smaller scale. We're going to be looking at some planning areas, and I think the guys are going to show the map. Planning Area 3, which is where we're sitting, that central area of Port St. Lucie. Planning Area 4 North, which is just west of us, south of St. Lucie West. And then 4 South, which is south of 4 North, along Becker, between the Turnpike and 95. So generally speaking, those are very large areas. Planning Area 3, for example, which is the one we're in now, has a population of about 40,000. And that's just a little shy of the population of the city of Fort Pierce.
Wow.
So it's a city, in some cases, the size of it. So what we're trying to do is narrow it down and look at smaller spots within that huge area. We aren't like a lot of communities where you grew up, where you lived in, you know, Royal Oak or Imperial Estates or, you know, Woodlands subdivision. You know, we have numbers. Nobody knows their number. Nobody cares about their number.
You rattled off 4 North and South.
Yeah.
Who knows what that is?
Yes, we're trying to get it to be a little bit more intimate, whether most people probably identify their neighborhood by roads. I live between Bayshore and Aroso, or I live off Del Rio. So we're going to try to come up with a way to identify these areas a little bit easier, and we're going to work with the neighbors on that. You know, this whole planning effort is about what the community wants. Not what the planning department wants, not what Public Works wants, not what the building department wants, not what the politicians want, but what the neighbors want. Okay. What does the community want?
Very good.
Do they want a park? Do they want a community garden? Do they want signage? Do they want better lighting? Sidewalks. I mean, we know sidewalks. We've got the survey, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that's one of the key issues that's coming out, sidewalks. And that's not a surprise to anybody here.
Everybody all over the city would like more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so Katie Huntress, also with the Planning and Zoning Department.
Yes.
You're involved in that part with working with the public directly. How do you find out what it is that they want in that particular neighborhood? What are you doing to
Well,
determine
we've
that?
been to a couple of events so far. We've got a survey online, which we'll put that up on the website so that people can go and take the survey. And then we also have people coming into the office that we can hand them some information on the neighborhood planning and hope to get their input. We're also going to have a couple of events coming up. There's the Lunch Fest here at City Hall, and that is May 1st from 11 to 3 p.m. And we will have a booth there, and we'll be able to interact with people and get their input as to what they'd like to see in their neighborhood and maybe see how they would identify their neighborhood. And then there's also the Seafood Festival on April 11th, and that's from noon to 8 p.m., and that's at the Civic Center, and we'll also have a booth there. We've also had 2 other events that we did, was the Italian Festival and also the Irish Festival.
Okay, so really kind of getting out at these public
Yeah.
events, meeting people, pressing the flesh, so to
Right.
speak, talking to them.
And we've also got a page, a Facebook page that we're going to try to put some more photographs on. But the important thing, I think, is really to have people give us their input. What do they want to see? How to create neighborhoods? And, you know, we've got the survey online,
Very
so
good.
we'd like to see people really take
The
part
more
in
people who
that.
participate, the better. It would
We
Yeah.
need input. We
Yeah.
really need
need to
input.
get input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far in your going out and working with people, what are you finding out? What is it that they're looking for?
You know, I think Patty will agree with me that people love Port St. Lucie.
Yes.
They really do.
They really do. And it's funny because for a few people who say otherwise, it really, it's such a small amount. But most
It
people
is.
are exactly like you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, we heard a little negative, and some of it's probably justified. But most of what we heard, both starting at the community conversation with the mayor through the events we've been to, has been very positive. You know, the city's clean, you know, it's new, there's things to do. Of course, we were at these events, so that was great because there were things to do.
Yeah.
And there's more all the time.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So I was pleasant. I've been a resident of Port St. Lucie for a long time, so it was really, really nice to hear how people feel about the city.
It was, and I think too often, you know, in our business, we do hear negative, you know, people that are unhappy with maybe some of their situations, you know, that come into the department. But it was really a pleasure to see how positive people are about the city.
And they feel good that you're going to identify their
Yeah.
neighborhood, give it some sort of identity that they can say, I live in Oak Brook or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
name
Right,
they
whatever it
come up
Yeah.
can be. Yeah.
And since much of this was built a long time ago, coming up with a name, that's got to be a bit of a task as well.
It is.
What would be the right name?
Yeah.
Well, and that's what
There-
we're going to find out. What are
Right.
what are the neighbors? You know,
Well, they
maybe
know
it's a
their
tree.
neighborhood best.
You know,
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, and
Yeah, what do they already call themselves if they do?
right.
good idea. And they know the area best. They know the little
That's right.
things about it that maybe the rest of us, if you're not there every day, you just miss out on somehow.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
But you know, I can't stress enough, this is all about the people. It's all about the residents and really what they want to see.
Okay. And of
Yeah.
course, so a survey is a great way to find out more information.
Survey is a great way, and then the next step is in our process, in this neighborhood planning effort process, is going to be working with focus groups. We're going to be looking at the senior population. You know, what are they missing? What would they like to see? We're going to be looking at the business community. What is it that they'd like to see? And then we're also going to be looking at the youth. Because a lot of planning, as somebody that's been a planner for a long time, planning doesn't happen tomorrow. Planning happens 5, 10, 15, 20, and sometimes 30 years out. The youth are the people that are going to see the ramifications of a lot of what we're doing
So
now.
it's good to include them in this process.
Definitely.
Yes.
It's important to them.
Exactly.
And you're gathering all this information for all these different areas. How many planning areas do we have in our city? You call it a planning area based on some criteria that matters to planning and
Well,
zoning.
physically, they've been able to, you know, we have the Turnpike, the river, US 1, they're physically separate our planning areas. So in some ways, it's very natural. US 1, east of US 1 is a planning area. US 1, the river, is a planning area. We have about 14 planning areas. Some of them have no people in them yet. And then you've got the older areas, which would be planning areas 1, 2, 3, 4 north, 4 south, 6, and 7. Planning area 8 is St. Lucie West, and then you get out into the west with the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Okay.
So it's, and most people don't know that. They don't know where they live. They could say, I live east of the river, or west of the river, or east of the turnpike, or west of the turnpike.
And the long-term goal of this is to give each of those areas a name, an identity, something about it that's a signature that represents
Below that area. We're not even going to be looking at that area. We're going to narrow it down.
Keep narrowing it
So, you know, the area, for example, east of Floresta, north of Crosstown, that might be a neighborhood.
Sure.
The area between Oroso and Bayshore, north of Thornhill, might be an area. So it's going to break that huge planning area, which is the size of a city, down into smaller entities.
Smaller, more
Yeah.
identifiable.
And that's the idea.
Very good. If somebody wants to know more about it, how can they find out more, Katie?
They can contact us in the Planning and Zoning Department. The phone number is 772-871-5213. They can come into the office. Also go to our website, which is pslneighborhoods.com. And you can also be redirected through the city's website to that website. And the survey is online. You can also get paper copies and hand them to us at one of these events or even in the office.
It's all on our homepage. Actually, if you go to the city's homepage, you'll find an explanation of all this, including a link to the survey.
Yeah.
So that should make it easier for people.
Right.
And
I have 2 planners helping me, Katie and John Finzio. He couldn't be with us today, but they're going to be my key staff working on this effort. And it's a 2 to 3 year effort.
all so many areas to really narrow down.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you discovering new things? Patti, you've been with the city a very long time, been in the city a very long time, and are you discovering anything new about
Not
areas
yet.
that maybe
Not
hasn't
yet. I
come
know I
surface?
will.
But it's
I know
coming.
I will. Yeah. We haven't gotten down into the nitty gritty. We're still at the big picture. But when we narrow down into the actual neighborhoods and talking to smaller groups, I'm sure there'll be something new.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
a nice surprise. You get close enough to it.
Right.
Exactly.
It's an important project you're working on.
Thank you.
And hopefully it'll benefit the city in the long run. And it'd be real nice to be able to say,
Great.
I live in such and such a neighborhood, and
Yeah.
it has a certain kind of a look and feel to it.
Right.
And hopefully we'll get a lot of input.
Great.
So that's key.
And that's key. So that'll be our goal from the communications department as well, to let people know about it and put it out whenever
Great.
you're having these public meetings. Maybe if you would give us, again, you mentioned a couple of times, a couple of things coming up, if you could mention those again.
Sure. The next thing that we've got is the Port St. Lucie Seafood Festival. That is at the Civic Center, and that is April 11th from noon to 8 p.m. And if you have any questions about this, you can always contact us if you forget this. And then also Friday, May 1st, 11 to 3 p.m. As the Lunch Fest here at City Hall. And we will have a booth at each one of those events.
Excellent. We hope some people come out, invite
Yeah.
them out, come on out and talk to you and get comfortable with the idea and really get enthusiastic about what this city will look like and what their neighborhood will be in the future.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Well,
Yeah.
great.
Good.
Patti Tobin, Planning and Zoning Director, Katie Huntress, Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you both for your time coming in
Thank
here.
you very
Thank you.
much.
And good luck on the rest of your project.
Great.
Thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this quick message. Stay with us.